What's going on, brothers? Today we'll be looking at our top 10 Yellowstone villains. As in movies, a television show is usually only as good as its bad guys. Just look at James Bond or other superhero movies. Our list expands beyond just the Yellowstone show and takes into account one other spin-off series. So be advised that there will be spoilers for both Yellowstone and 1923.
We're enemies now.
Number 10. Thomas Rainwater. Labeling Rainwater a villain is a bit of a stretch, but he's the first clear opponent that the modern-day Dutton family faces, at least when the first season of Yellowstone aired. Rainwater is a wealthy casino mogul who is out to take back the land that the Dutton ancestors took from his. He's a clever and calculated guy who's never on the offense. He's biding his time, and throughout the series, Rainwater and his trusted driver Mo made a pact with the Duttons to help each other out when other, more sinister figures show up in town, which there have been plenty of. Fighting a common enemy proved to be effective so far, but it's not unlikely that Rainwater and the Duttons will clash eventually. Especially now that his attorney, Angela Blue Thunder, showed up, reminding him not to go soft on his original opponent. Number 9. Caroline Warner. She's the CEO of Market Equities, a company out to build an airport on the Duttons' land. Caroline came in as a substitute for Rourke, a character that could have made this list, but was ultimately not terrifying enough, and will be instead remembered by getting the most memorable death in the series. Caroline is a ruthless woman that is obviously used to getting what she wants, which makes her the ultimate opponent for our protagonist family's very own Beth Dutton. And while both have their verbal moments, we're yet to find out what Caroline's true villain potential is. Although her latest move, sending in her secret weapon Sarah Atwood, seems like it might pay off big time. Number 8. Banner Creighton. Banner made his appearance in the spin-off show 1923. The Scottish immigrant and sheepsherder has about the same gripe with the Duttons as everyone else. The family just owns too much land. He wants some for his sheep to graze on, and when he can't have it, he starts taking it. He almost ends up paying for it with his life, but as we now know, he turned the roles on the Duttons quite quickly. In the scope of it all, a small sheepsman shouldn't be a match for the Dutton Empire, even in the early stages, but here we are, with him entering our top 10. Is he a true villain? That's up for debate, and he's only taking revenge on the cold-bloodedness of the Duttons. But hey, I guess it's a tough world out there in Montana. The man is obviously a loose cannon, but with a bit of guidance, he's able to inflict great damage, and I for one can't wait to find out how his character arc will conclude. Number 7. Garrett Randall. Although his time on Yellowstone was rather short, Randall managed to make a lasting impression. This character is none other than Jamie Dutton's birth father.
Do you trust him to be a good politician?
And boy does he know how to play his son. Then again, Jamie's not exactly a difficult target when it comes to that. After killing his wife when Jamie was just a toddler, he got locked up for many years. Meanwhile, John Dutton, a friend of Randall's wife Phyllis, decided to adopt her son. And when Jamie ultimately finds out, it causes a loyalty battle, one that Jamie ultimately ended himself. Randall was an interesting character because we never really saw him outside of his own territory much, always messing with Jamie's head, yet it turned out to be him who ordered the hit on John Dutton, making him the villain who came closest to chopping off the head of the modern Dutton family tree. There were times we as an audience actually felt for this guy, and as we all know, those are usually the most dangerous. Number 6. Sarah Atwood. Continue the psychological war that Garrett Randall started in Jamie Dutton's head. Sarah Atwood is here to finish the job. Sent in by Market Equities CEO Caroline Warner as a last resort to get the Duttons to implode, this feisty lady has Jamie wrapped around more than just her finger. Of course, her storyline is still ongoing, so it's unclear whether she'll achieve her goals, but as it stands at the mid-season finale of Season 5, she even managed to shake Beth to her core. So if that's not an achievement, I don't know what is. Earlier, I called her boss Caroline ruthless, but Miss Atwood takes it to the next level, rightfully making her claim a spot on this list. Number 5. Dan Jenkins. Being Yellowstone's OG villain, Dan deserves to make it into the top 5, I think. And the only reason he's not placed higher is because in the end he had a conscience, which is not something you can say about most people on here. Dan was a capital developer for Paradise Valley, a luxury housing project in Montana that was not to the liking of Yellowstone Ranch owner John Dutton, initiating the first big clash of the series. Together with Rainwater, Dan struck a deal to take on the Duttons, but eventually also ended up siding with them when guns started to get waved around. Poor Dan ultimately met his end by the Beck brothers' hitmen in the season 2 finale. I'm sure that in traditional business terms, he'd been a tough nut to crack, but hey, this is Yellowstone, baby.
Let's wrench in for you.
Number 4, Jamie Dutton. Okay, this one might come off as a bit of a surprise, but throughout this list, he's been mentioned a bit too much alongside devious individuals. Being the impressionable fella he is, Jamie usually ends up being used to get to his non-biological family, which doesn't mean there's nothing deep inside him that justifies his actions against them. And you know, there's plenty of reasons for him to feel resentment towards the Duttons, while the same could be said the other way around. So it's a complicated relationship. I don't even think I've ever seen a TV character have so many mood swings as Jamie. Anyway, his latest endeavor is to have his father impeached as the governor of Montana. The question again remaining, can his anger against John and Beth surpass the pain of finding out Sarah Atwood has been playing him all along? Poor Jamie, I feel sorry for him already having him on here. Number 3, Donald Whitfield. 1923's Donald Whitfield is arguably the sickest man throughout the entire Yellowstone universe. He's what I call a classic movie villain, his wealth only being trumped by his sadistic tendencies. He's a bit cartoonish, a guy you love to hate. He's quite the ladies' man too, at least I'm sure that's how he sees it. He's also a mining tycoon, set on acquiring every inch of Paradise Valley, and we quickly learn how he'll do it. First by weakening the Duttons, a move for which he uses his pawn, Banner, and then coming in himself to deliver an unexpected new blow by paying off their debt, making him the new owner of their land when they fail to pay him back by winter. Whitfield is what all the characters we come to love on this TV universe despise. He's progress, and more specifically, progress for nothing more than his own benefit. Like he said,
I'm a businessman. The word decent doesn't apply to me.
Number 2, the Beck brothers. This shady yet sharply dressed real estate duo has ties to all kinds of dangerous groups like the Montana Free Militia and some gang of skinheads. And what's more, they're not afraid to show up themselves when action is needed. So no wonder Rainwater and Dan Jenkins are feeling safer siding with the Duttons as soon as this pair shows up. When their hunt for land came to a halt, the Beck brothers launched a new series of attacks against the Duttons, most notably the one in Beth's office and the kidnapping of Casey's son Tate, making them quite prolific as far as violent incidents go. The Becks were killed off eventually by Casey and John. Despite being on for just one season, they were the first to really stir things up on the Yellowstone Ranch and beyond. Number 1, Father Renaud. 1923's Father Renaud is evil personified, not out of sadism like Donald Whitfield, but out of conviction. He believes that what he does is the right thing, and so how do you even argue with that? You can't. Father Renaud is the headmaster of an American Indian boarding school in Montana, where the story follows Tiana Rainwater and the brutality she and her fellow students underwent by his hands, and those of his equally despicable sisterhood. It's telling that the actor Sebastian Roche apologized to the rest of the cast up front of shooting his scenes. And when earlier I said that 1923's Donald Whitfield is a dude I love to hate, well, with Renaud, it's only hate. And considering the fact that out of all of the characters on this list, this man could have feasibly existed at some point in history, he just had to be number 1. As with all on-screen villains, their reign of terror must come to a satisfying end sooner or later. And if there's one death I believe all fans are looking forward to, it's his. That was it for this video, brothers. I hope you enjoyed it. Did I miss someone and you agree with the list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this to come.